Hello, welcome to Momming and Thriving. Today we have another boss mom, Jenny Abamu. I've known her for a long time. And let's just say that you're going to be amazed by what she has to say because her career is actually remarkable. She doesn't know this, but I've been a quiet admirer for a while. And I just wanted to introduce her to you guys and just let her inspire those of you that want to have a fulfilling career. Jenny, can you introduce yourself?
So my name is Jenny Abamu. I am a US diplomat. Before that I worked as a journalist here in right now I'm in the DC area, but I'm going to be headed to Madrid, Spain next. Before that, I served in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah, and yeah, super excited about what's up ahead. I'm a mom of two kids. I have a 2 month old. Well, actually now he's 3 months, and then I have a 2 year old. And so that's a fun combination.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody has little kids, that's actually not a fun combination, but they're super sweet, super cute, and so you have to enjoy all the sleepless moments and the awake moments and the sleep that you get.
Okay, Danny, thank you so much. And I'm going to go straight into the questions. One of the reasons why I chose you to be on on our Boss Mom series was, for me, being a boss mom, you need to have grit, you need to have tenacity. It's not easy, and that's one thing I know that you have. I have my inside info. Shola, you know yourself, but I want you to tell us a bit more about your journey in terms of how you got to where you are now, career wise.
It's been a long journey. I did not come up from a family that's like a lot of the other families that are U.S. diplomats. We went to public school, some of the worst public schools in the U.S. A lot of my colleagues went to private school. We luckily I was able to get to college, and we hustled and through loans and scholarships and all the other in betweens to pay for it, and then also I went overseas for a little bit, and I taught overseas for a few years. Then I came back and did my master's at Columbia University in New York City, and I did a master's in international and comparative education, and then I worked in a news organization, like it was just kind of coincidence that like I saw opportunity, and then of course I took the foreign service officer exam and learned about that, and between reporting and um, moving through rising as a reporter, and then finally got called to be a U.S. diplomat and decided to try it. It's been a journey. I would say it's not easy. It's taken a lot of grit and a lot of support. I would say also
Hmm.
that's important. I have a very supportive husband. That's really important because I don't think it's fair to say I could do all this by myself. But it's been quite a bit of a journey. I've slept on couches. I've slept in cars. I Just because I didn't have time to go home, not necessarily because I was without a home, but because I didn't have time between work and between studying and trying to pay for everything and do everything. You know, I've hustled a lot to pay for stuff because I don't come from a wealthy family or anything like that. So like I've had to learn through grit and tears and sweat, and like you said, to kind of learn to get to where we are now. And but it's a lot of support too. I will say that too. So I have had a supportive husband, married for 10 years, and that's also made a difference. Sometimes you need people to see things in you that you don't see in yourself, and so that helps.
I'm glad you highlighted the not so fun and not so glamorous part of the hustle. Did you have this personality traits as a child? Having that grit, having that end goal in mind, and thinking, okay, I may not have this now, but I'm going to try and apply for this scholarship. I'm going to try and like, did you show any of those personality traits as a child, or it kind of came on as you grew older?
Actually, I will say I do think I had that trait as a child. As a child, my grit exhibited itself as a strong-willed personality, which
Mm.
oftentimes was interpreted as rebellion. And so you can think about it that way if you have rebellious kids, or because sometimes if you like when I was a kid, I would call my parents out on stuff. My dad was okay with it. He was except for when it was him. He didn't mind if I did to other people. But in a sense of I remember my dad was like, I was like, oh, you treat women differently than you treat men. I used to tell him, I was like, that's sexism. You're sexist. That is older Nigerian guy. So I was like, and he was like, what are you talking about? But I'd be like, my brother can do this and I can't do this. I have an older brother is 1 year older than me, and I'd be like, he can do this, I can't do this. That's sexism. So I'd be like calling him out and like, like you shouldn't be discriminating against us or whatever, and you're treating us differently and stuff like that. And he kind of ignore it. Or like if I wanted to get something done or do something, I always went after it and tried to do it. And I was always like, I'm gonna I remember my mom was when I was like, oh, I'm gonna go study abroad, and they were like, when I was in undergrad, I had like this random boyfriend, and he was like, oh, if you study abroad, then I'm gonna break up with you because I want to, I just want to stay here in Texas. What are you gonna do that for? And I'm like, well, okay, see you later. And I remember I remember I told him specifically, I said, if you break up with me, you're gonna be sad about it, but I won't. And then
Wow.
actually it was true. He was later on very regretful and like coming back and begging, and I was like, nope, I'm done. I had discovered a new life. I'm super excited. And went abroad, but I've always been like very much like, if I want something, I'm gonna do this thing, and this is my
Mhm.
this is a desire and will that I have, and I'm going to go after that desire and will, and I don't really care what anybody says or how they feel. And people just, sometimes that's written off as like, oh, Jenny doesn't care about us, or Jenny's nonchalant, or Jenny like is rebellious and she wants to do this thing that we have no interest or we don't know about, which is like a lot of people didn't even know. A lot of people where I come from don't even know how you get to where you go, and so like they're like, oh, Jenny is just like a little crazy, like crazy or rebellious or whatever. But I look at it as a strong will. It is a strong will. It
Mhm.
does take a strong will to get to it. To do what I've done. I will say that to get to where I have been, you kind of have to ignore people sometimes. You just kind of have to keep going. You have to push
Mhm.
yourself. And so like I will say like that. Sometimes I see my oldest son. He's so stubborn. Sometimes I'll like say sorry, and he'll be like, nope. He's gonna sit there and look at me. I was like, you know what? I have a strong will. You have a strong will. But guess what? I'm older than you. I've been doing this for a longer time. We're gonna sit here and look at each other until you say sorry. But I don't knock him for that personality, because I also think that that's the
Mm.
kind of personality that gets you through things, like being able to be strong and being able to say no, or being able not even to give into pressure, like to resist pressure, like to when those things happen, it's so valuable. I just thinking my kid, like I'm like, I hope you say this I hope you're like this when people pressure you with drugs or pressure you with like things you're not supposed to be doing, because sometimes you
Mm.
have to resist the pressure and do the right thing. And so I'm hoping that you'll always keep this strong willed personality, that you have your center, and wherever you get your center from, that hopefully that center is good and that you follow that center. And so that's why I'm like, I look at it and I say, okay, I see it in my kid, and it's like, this is it's not it's difficult when you're parenting, but you have to. I see it. I'm like, okay, I believe maybe you can be president then.
It's channeling that energy, channeling that toughness, that grit, that tenacity, not falling into peer pressure. It's channeling it in a positive way.
Mhm.
Like I wouldn't say that if a child is strong-willed is necessarily a bad thing, because even
Right.
I see it with my daughter as well. A
Mhm.
lot of women that have made history, they were not well behaved. There's a quote I saw
Exactly,
that somewhere.
exactly, right. It's
You know?
they're very oftentimes they're very considered very aggressive, strong. Like that's kind of how you do it half the time. Like
Hmm.
you kind of have to be a little bit out of you make people uncomfortable, and sometimes it's people get mad about it, and it's like that's and you got to be okay with things with people not being always happy with you, like, or not being
That's it.
exactly the way it is. You got to be okay with
We need to be delivered from the need to be liked by everyone.
right,
I think this
right,
is it. This is one of the things, because you're taught to be kind, and it's nothing wrong with being soft
right,
spoken or being sweet, but if you have a strong message, you have something to do, it comes across, when a woman does, it comes across like she's being assertive or she's being a bit aggressive. But then at the
right,
end of the day, a man would do the exact same thing, and it's not, look, no one
all the
blinks,
time.
no one even blinks. So I think it's just channeling that energy in a positive way. So leave your boy alone. I'll leave my daughter alone with your strong
Right,
personalities.
right. We had to accept it. We had to be like, okay, okay, you guys are a little tough, but I believe that this will be channeled in the right direction.
I'm gonna go to the next question, which is the current career you're in. Did you ever think you were going to have this career, or it just kind of morphed? And how did you get to this career?
I never imagined this, honestly, and I still don't think I wrap my head around like where I am, like because to be um to hold a title of like a US diplomat, I didn't even know anybody who did this thing. Like I didn't even know like
Mm,
what that was or what it is or what it entailed or who did it. I did not grow up knowing that. I knew I wanted to work over like do international affairs, but I imagined myself more like in an NGO or something, or like
mm,
like a social service type of thing, which is it is still public service, my job, but it's a different level of public service and different level of policy making and things like that, and policy like interactions that's completely different than what I imagined myself to be doing. And so like I would say like I didn't not it's kind of funny because sometimes I see some of my colleagues and they have diplomat parents and they had like this community. So they're like, they grew up in this thing where they have these like high visions or like the visions are just normal for them. But for me it's like it's surreal to even think like, oh, like so there are so many privileges that you have. There's so many things that there's so much, and then also at the same time, so much responsibility that you have as a U.S. diplomat and a representative. That's like there's things that you don't say, things that you don't do. There's actions that you just don't want to, don't want to take because of the title that you're carrying. And so,
mm,
and I sometimes don't even wrap my head around it. I'm like, oh, I'm just like a normal person. But when you go overseas and you go to you go to countries, people treat you in a completely different way. There's a completely different expectation um,
mm,
of behavior and interactions and who you're interacting with because of your title. And so, like, then that's something that I've kind of like tried to wrap my head around because, like, even just like I used to be like, oh, those are diplomats and look at the plates and stuff like that. You can see the little the car on their plates in the car, but it's like now we have those plates on our cars. So like it's so crazy, and also you drag your whole family along for this journey. So that's also another thing to think
mm,
about. Like I didn't have to like now my husband was like, oh man, you guys have to his career, follows my career. Luckily, he has a very flexible career. He's able to do it because of COVID. Thank goodness. That's one good thing that came out of COVID is that he's able to work remotely and stuff. And so he was able to keep his job. But it's also like, generally like my career is dragging our whole family everywhere all the time. And so it's a lot to
mm,
kind of like, especially with the kids and like I lament changing Atlas's school every time. My oldest son, I'm always like, oh, I'm changing his school again, and I'm feeling bad that I have to change in a different environment, new people every single time he has to change. And sometimes I'm like, and I know that it takes him a little while to warm up. And because I see that in the school now, he's running into class, and I'm like, oh, now he's super excited. He's going to school, and he'll say, oh, mom, friends. I have my friends. And so I said, okay, yeah, you got your friends. And then we go, and
mm.
he'll come in, and he'll see one of his friends, and he'll reach out to them. He'll run into the school and leave me, which he wasn't doing before. Before he's holding on to you and crying. And so now he's
Yeah.
going in super excited. But now I'm super sad because like we're leaving in a month. Like in 1 month we gotta go.
Mm,
And so then that's just a lifestyle. You just gotta because each post you go to you only can stay for like 2 to 3 years, and then you have to go to another place. And so that's that's something that you have to kind of think about. But I mean I'm super thankful for this position and being able to do this. It's a whole different world. It's a different world
mm.
in terms of a lot of things. And so it's like I feel like it's opening my eyes to like a different way of life that I didn't imagine myself doing as a child because I had no reference to imagine.
That's one of the things I actually wanted to ask you next, because a lot of success, we say, like, if you have a role model, if you can see something, there's a North Star in front of you and say, okay, I aspire to do this role because I'm seeing it. So it made sense when you said a lot of your colleagues had parents that were diplomat because they saw it, they know the drill, they knew what it entailed. But for me, I just want to touch on the fact how you were able to navigate and just move from where you were in Texas with the school and just decide that, okay, I'm going to be a US diplomat and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take the courses or whatever it takes, the exams. So what was that point? Like, when did that shift happen?
So I think that the way I figured out how to actually dream about it was when I went to Columbia, because of course that you have to enter spaces sometimes where people are not like
Hmm,
you. Right, like,
good.
because
That's a
if
good
I'm in
point.
a
Yeah.
community of people, like I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I grew up in South Dallas. It's not a community of wealthy people. It's not a community of like it's not the nicest part of Dallas. Like if I was to move back to Dallas, that's not where I would go. Like if I would, I would be like North Dallas is usually the place where people have money, or people who have the nicest schools, people who go to the nicer schools. So being able to and I remember when I got accepted in this club, I was super excited. I never imagined myself. It was my like. I said, okay, I'm gonna throw out an application. Just try. And when I got accepted, I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to Columbia University, which is an Ivy League school for and those are in New York City, and that's a whole different thing than Dallas, Texas, like the suburb
Mm,
areas, and even Baylor University, where my undergrad was. To do you get exposed to a whole different amount of caliber of people. Like these people work daily in like they're work at the UN. They're on the news every day. They're people who influence policy and make these decisions. And so you get to understand what kind of roles they're doing, where they are. Like I'm thinking I used to meet with Jeffrey Sachs, which is like one of the greatest economists that you use his book on economics in classes all over the United States. But he's worked with tons of world leaders and stuff like that. And he's just teaching there in Columbia, hanging out, like or like they have. They're just they're high caliber people with big resumes and profiles. In New York City is like that. You run into those people all the time, like hang out with Michael Bloomberg and all these things. Like I was working and I got to do the news job. So rubbing shoulders
mm,
and being around these type of people, then you get exposed to a whole different lifestyle and a whole different group of people. And you can see things that you didn't see before. You can see pathways that you didn't see before. And really you have to get out of your bubble to be able to see those pathways. You have to and it was not easy. New York is not an easy place. It is not a place for the weak. Like you go to New York City, you better be ready to hustle. Like if you don't have money, unless you got a lot of money in a trust fund somewhere, and even if you do, you still gotta hustle because it's a lot of money that you need, not like a regular
yeah.
amount of money. That's when I was sleeping in my car, right? Because I was going to school. I wanted to finish my master's, so I would work during the day to pay for stuff. I would have class. I would work overnight sometimes at a news station because news station is news. You got to work 24/7, and so I would work overnights. Then I would have class in the morning. So instead of me driving all the way to where I was living, because I didn't live close in the middle of the city because I couldn't afford it, so I lived a little further out. I would drive to the parking lot of Columbia, and I would um, lower my seat in the car, and then I would sleep, and then I would get up and go to class because I was just like, I gotta go to class, get stuff done. But it wasn't just going to class; it was also meeting people and having those interactions, and that was like being able to be around people who had money, who had wealth, who grew up in these type of networks. That's what really helped me out. Like it was like people like I remember like my job after that, like someone just walked into the Columbia building and they were like, hey, we need a writer for a publication that I have. And they needed, do you need a job? And I was like, yeah, I need a full-time job, sure. And that's how, and it doesn't work like that every time. I'm not gonna say like they're just handing out jobs in Columbia, but sometimes they're handing out jobs in Colombia. And so like because that's the dynamic of the environment. And so like that you're in. And sometimes all you gotta do is
100%.
drop. And people are like, oh, I know this person, I can help you out. Or they tell you the pathway. And so the pathway that I learned it while I was working over there temporary. Like I had a part-time job over there at a publication I was writing for. And I learned about the work, and so I was like, oh, great. Like let me try it. And I just took the test, passed the test. Luckily, I'm an avid reader, and so, like you have to read and study and do that, and I was already like that, and so, it did. There are pathways. There are ways as like the American dream statement. I always say it with qualifiers because yes, you can do the American dream. It is real, like obviously, because this is my family, like I can think about like I would be their American dream essentially, because like imagine coming as a immigrant from nothing and then having your kid be a US diplomat and stuff like that, and doing all those things. Like those are real situations, but also it's really hard. It takes a little bit of luck in addition to the hard work, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you have to be in the right place at the right time. It's not always just working, 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 and also like
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I mean, God forbid, there's something that you I don't know, some crazy thing happens, like that you have to pay, that you can't afford to live or you live there or something. I got really lucky in that some people saw things in me, offered me jobs or whatever it might be, and I was able to like work my way up from there and meet people and do it. But it took time. It took time and it was hard.
Yeah. But from what you just said, there are three points you made. The first thing is environment.
Mhm.
Being in the right environment opened you up. Like you were able to be influenced by the people around you. You saw what was attainable. You saw what was
Mhm.
possible because you were in Colombia.
Right.
The second thing you said was hard work. Obviously, you worked hard. There was a bit of a struggle, there was a bit of a hustle, but you said you were an avid reader already. So being an avid reader, it wasn't like, so that was the preparation in before you even had the opportunity. So
Right.
if you had the opportunity but you didn't have the preparation, then it
Right.
wasn't gonna
A hundred
work. So
percent.
being
100%.
so having that environment was one, being prepared for the role was the second, and obviously you said luck, but I okay, to an extent I agree, but it's also because you put yourself in that environment to get lucky in the first place.
Also,
No one's gonna hand you a job, just anywhere, but being in Colombia, like, and obviously to get to Colombia you had to work. There was certain things on your CV that they saw when you made the application
right.
that put you in the place to get accepted to the university. So yes, well, thank you so much for sharing that. But I just wanted to highlight those 3 points you mentioned.
No, great summary.
Now, now the whole podcast is about motherhood. How has that been for you, being
Hard.
a mom of two?
Probably one of the most challenging things I've done. I was like, yeah, I can go and like debate like terrorism or whatever in Saudi Arabia or whatever's happening, but I was like, man, like mothering is hard, hard.
Mm,
That one is a job that does not have hours, and I just like that. I think like the first kid was shocking for me, like
mm,
as someone who's used to going and giving 100% every time. I couldn't do that all the time when I'm as a mom. I had to take a break because
mhm.
I was like, man, you really like, I was used to everything being perfect. My husband always like, oh, you're an overachiever, you're always, he's like, you don't have to do it for everything. And I'm like, and I was like, and I realized that as a parent I can't do that all the time. Like
No, you can't.
I couldn't keep up. And I did crash. I crashed hard when you were talking about like and these are things that you don't post on social, right? Like oh, she's putting blah 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 blah. No, there's sometimes you crash. And I crashed. The first
Mhm,
with the first kid, I think when I first moved to Saudi Arabia, my Atlas was 2.5 months. And I remember I was so overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed. I was in a new country. It was COVID also. I mean, it was a cataclysm of several negative factors, and I was alone.
mhm,
I was isolated. I felt like I was, just like in the sense that my family wasn't there and nobody could travel freely at that time because of COVID. And so we got there, and I was just overwhelmed with trying to like protect this child in the middle of this pandemic in this random foreign country where I can't even just go around like freely like I normally do in the United States, and like
mhm.
and I'm also in this new career that I don't really even know what I'm doing, and actually nobody knew what was going on at that point because everything was so different. I couldn't find help even at that time because of COVID. And so like normally you could like maybe get like a nanny or get somebody else to like come and help you babysit. So my husband took off work. So that's what I mean. You need support. Like my husband took like leave without pay from his job or whatever to just full time be dad and take care of the baby. But even then, like we still like, I was trying to do mothering the same way I did everything else, which is like, and that's hard to describe, but I'm one of those people who like, I go over, if you tell me to write one page, I'll give you 10. Like, that's just like, I'm
Mhm.
like used to doing it, living my life that way. Like, I'm used to just going above and beyond every time for like random, just unnecessarily, which I had to realize I can't do. And so like I say like around 3 weeks into moving to Saudi Arabia, I crashed. And I got in the sense that like I just like kind of had a mental breakdown. I think I cried like every day for 3 weeks straight because I was just like, I don't know how to handle this. I can't keep up. I couldn't do things the way I normally do. I was so sleep deprived. Actually, I was so like, I didn't even realize how tired I was because I was trying to
Mm.
keep going at the same pace. And I realized that I had to slow down and I had to like let some things go. And so, like, to balance out to balance everything, to balance the work, to balance, because I even went to my boss, I was like, I'm quitting, I'm going back to America. I was like, this is enough. This is too much. I was like, I can't do all these things. I need some people around me. I need my mom. I need somebody else. I need like anybody else. Like it's just too hard. And I was like, this is really really hard to like. And I don't even know where. I can't even get like basic things done. And also it was COVID, so there was a lot going on. I was like, and also being isolated like as a new mom is not really a great idea. Don't do it to yourself.
No,
And so like you need a network. That's why they say is a
you
village
do.
child.
You
Like,
need, yeah.
it's a completely different experience with my second kid. Now that COVID's kind of like over, but like people are not living the COVID life anymore. And it's like with my second kid, we have grandparents over, everybody's here, in and out, coming in. You hold the baby, you hold the baby. Before we wouldn't let anybody hold Atlas in COVID. It was like we were holding Atlas because like I don't want him to get sick or something or get this COVID. And so like I was so paranoid all the time, trying to protect him, trying to do everything. Like with the mask, we didn't go anywhere, didn't go to any events. It was just horribly isolating. And that's why I was like, I completely crashed. And I was like, so I ended up going to therapy for a minute. And I remember the first thing my therapist did was like, she was like, okay, walk me through your day. And I just like walked her through the day. And she's like, I noticed that you didn't say sleep. When do you sleep? And I was like, actually, I don't know when I sleep. I don't know when I sleep. And so then she's like, you have to sleep. She's like, you have to sleep. You have to find time and sleep.
Mm.
So she's like, you need to rearrange your life so that you're sleeping more and you're taking breaks because you have to do it. And so I was, because like that's obviously like, and I didn't even. It was weird because I was like so used to going, going, going. I didn't even realize I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. Like, so I was
Wow.
like, so I had to like, so I talked, me and my husband worked out a thing where I slept in a different room because I'm also a very light sleeper. So everything wakes me up. So I'm like, if the baby moved, I was like, what's going on? What's going on, baby? What's going on? I was like, so I wasn't, I like, so I ended up, I moved to a different room and my husband's a heavy sleeper. He just sleep through everything. And so like, he stayed. And unless the baby was actively like crying or something, then I would come into the room and help out or whatever. But like I had to move to a different room, so I slept outside in a different room, and I just like did other little things to like help me get a few hours of sleep more because I just like had, and it really did make me a lot better. Like I was a lot happier after that. Like I was like, I don't know, I didn't
Mm.
realize I wasn't like, and I kind of like told my boss, I can't work after this time. I have to take care of my kid and my family. I have to set these boundaries. Normally, I can work overtime
Mm.
all the time, but now that I have kids, I have to set a boundary. I have to set I have to try to
100%.
get as much as I can done during the hours that are there. And then once those hours are done, I'm done.
That's it.
That's like that. I had to do that because when you're single, you can do that. You can go endless hours randomly, and like really you can. I don't think it's equitable to make people do that just because they're single. But people like you don't really have the same obligation after to take care of dinner. Make whatever thing like this. I was like, this baby got to eat multiple times a day and you have to think about it like normally if it's just me I just don't eat sometimes or or whatever like or I get a cup of coffee and something and walk, and walk and eat. But this baby needs to sit down and eat. And like, like I have to, but like like you really in American culture, over here in America, people just carry their food and walk, and they're doing two things while they're eating. This is
Mm.
like me. Like normally I'm doing that, but like I was like, man, this baby has to sit down and take 30 minutes of my time, and I have to sit down and eat with this kid. Like they have to for like 30 minutes. We get to sit here and eat. Oh man, this is a lot of time. So like
Yeah.
um it's like it's a lot to like kind of think about. And so like that's like it's just like a lot to like I don't know the process. I had to really really learn how to take a break, and that
Mm.
was something I didn't know how to do. And that's like actually, and that's like, I didn't know how to do something 50%. And I was like, okay,
Mm,
I have to learn how to not give 110% today. And like
mm,
that was active unlearning that I still am working on because like
mm,
I still like things to be like, they're like, Jenny, you gotta calm down. And you can't be like that with the parenting. You gotta like you gotta let your kid like have some space. You can't watch him every moment. You can't
yeah,
baby cries a little bit. It's okay. It's okay.
yeah.
Gonna be all right. Gonna be all right. I was like, okay.
I guess this is when the boss personality traits kind of gets in conflict with realities of motherhood,
Yes,
because
exactly. And it's
yeah,
because you can't control like a human. Like you can't like a human's gonna grow and develop in their own little way, and
yes, yeah,
you can't like dictate or control that. That's something you have to release control, and that
yeah.
was something that I had to learn with mothering. Like I can do like I with projects and work. Yes, I have a lot more control over that thing, but with a human, this is a person. It's somebody else,
Mhm.
and they're you you can do your best to guide, and I tried to do sleep training. This kid was not sleep training. I was like, I read books about like all kinds of random things, like all like sleep training. Like I was like, man, this baby is crying and crying and not sleeping. I was like, enough of this, enough of this. Everyone was crying because we were crying, because I was like, he's crying so much. Then we one day grandma cried, one day I cried, one day Sadat cried. I said, we all crying now because it sleeping. Everyone's sad because we're making baby cry, and baby's still not asleep. I was like, okay, this is a bad plan. Next plan. So I would have plans of getting baby on like a schedule so that I could be on a schedule. Baby was not on my schedule.
Nah, nah, nah. Those things
Baby did
don't work.
not care about my schedule. And so I was like, okay, I gotta let all that go. I was like, just you go live your life, and you go do what you want to do. But I tried. I did try. I did try. I tried lots of plans. Lots of, you're gonna do it this way. You're gonna do it this way. You're gonna do this way. You're gonna eat this way. You're doing solids, now you don't sleep. Oh, now you have a sleep regression. Oh, now we all don't sleep. Or now you have this other random issue. And I was like, oh, okay, babies
Mm.
have lots of random issues. You're sick this
So
week.
what?
Ah,
So what would you say has been your biggest takeaway or lesson from this process so far? Like, so based on how you approached it, and then you realize, okay, maybe this approach isn't working. What's been your biggest lesson so far?
um, in terms of mothering, definitely releasing control. Also, I learned about I would say like needing a community, needing other people.
Mm,
Because I'm used to also doing things
100%.
myself. I'm very much Jenny can do it herself type of person. Jenny cannot do everything herself in this situation. Jenny
Mm,
needs help. And so like I have to enlist help and support. And in the process of enlisting help and support, I have to accept that they might not do it the way I want it done.
yeah, that's a
And
good
so
point.
especially as my personality, I'm like, that's taken some time to learn. So like, cause I'm like, exact this way, make it good. See my vision, see my vision. Like, if you do things through my vision, it will be perfect. It will work. I do this all the time. I have visions and I do it and it works. But they don't see my vision, so they just so. But at the end of the day, I had to be like, you know what? This kid's still alive. He's doing great. He's growing. He's
Hmm.
smiling. Okay, I'm just gonna not look and let you. I know you love this child the way I love this child, so I'm gonna let you
Do it.
do it
Is
your way, a little bit. And that's especially
exactly.
with grandparents and like other like my husband's parents are here helping us a little bit since we're in DC. But like with grandparents and with my husband and stuff like that, you have to be like, okay, he doesn't change the diaper the way I want it changed. Let it go. Let it go, girl. Let it go. Fight that battle. Like, yeah, maybe you can pick some other. I want them to feed.
Hmm.
I wanted them to feed the baby at a certain time, a certain amount of milk, and I organize it that way. But for some reason, it doesn't end up being that way. Just let it go, Jenny.
Hmm. As long as the baby is fed and
Fed,
alive and
fed.
good and fine,
On their
that's it.
exact hours that you wanted it to be done. but the milk is gone at the end of the day. Okay, whatever. I had a plan, but had a plan. I was like, if you do it this way, baby will sleep at this time, and then this will happen at this time, and then he'll be able to do, stretch out his sleep for this many hours, and then we'll be able to sleep this much time. And then I let it go. I had a vision.
But how has it been now with a new one? So now you have two. You've got one that is 2 months old. Yeah.
I do feel like God has given me a little grace. Thank goodness, because like I needed it. Because maybe I'm a little bit more relaxed. The second one, he's, knock on wood, like just he latched immediately, like right out the womb. This baby was latching, and this baby was like sleeping like longer stretches, and so like he's been like sleeping pretty well, doing pretty well. He's super calm, very calm personality. And so I'm like, oh, this is a calm one. Like the first one is like me, like a little bit of firecracker, like a little crazy. And this other one is actually probably more like my husband, like more sensitive, calm. I just think it's kind of funny because I at least feel like I can see their personalities. Like he's more calm, he's more sensitive, he's more like he's very sensitive. Like he'll just like, if you're crying, he'll start crying. Like it's just like he's just like very in tune with the environment around him.
Mm.
So he's a very different personality. I'm like, okay, I hope you can stand your will too. I need you to do that. But he seems like he has a very different personality than his brother. Atlas is like, give me my milk. I want it now. I want it this way. And I'm like, you're just a baby. But like the other one is like very calm. Like even his cries were not as loud as Atlas's cries, so it's actually easier for me to not like pay attention. And so I'm like, wait, I was like, okay, this baby just cries lower. You still need to pay attention to the cry. Like, he doesn't scream like his brother, but like he's just a softer crier, calmer personality, very different. So like I don't know. I feel like I'm like, okay, this one, he's. Maybe I'm just also more ready for it too.
I was about to say that maybe it's also you. Maybe it's the fact that you're more relaxed in your approach. You're more, you've done this before, so it's not all new. So maybe it's also from you guys, the parents.
I do sense that. I'm like, maybe we're also like more relaxed. So I was like, for the first baby, oh my God, everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be right. And then now we're like, oh, give me these hand-me-downs. I was like, everything had to be new, cleaned. And I was like,
organic.
Right, organic. I was like, baby soap. I was like,
made from scratch.
Yeah, I'm serious. No, serious. I was like, did you give him? Did you wash that bottle with regular soap? You got to use the baby soap for that. What are you doing? Did you sterilize that? Did you sterilize all those things that are touching the thing? Like, did you I was like, no, we just wash. We just wash right now. I'm like, is it can I just rinse it off with water? First of all, I was like, it's got to be sterilized. Put it in the sterilizer. Don't you know how to use a sterilizer? Like, crazy.
Oh, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that experience. So what would you've mentioned some of the lowest point, but what would you say has been one of your highlights of, like, if you can think of a day or something that's happened recently that you can remember that's just been like, oh, made you feel I'm so blessed to be a mom. If you can just mention a highlight or something.
There was one point where recently, like, I saw my sons playing together, and I really loved that. Like, they're little, so one of them was just sitting in his little rocker chair, and the other one was popping up and doing like surprise, and they were both cracking up, like hilarious, laughing at each other, and I was like, oh my God, they're playing together. And I was like, my goodness, I'm so happy that they're happy and they're peaceful. And they just, there's so many moments where just seeing them like interact has been like just kind of exciting for me. And I guess like with two, that's what I really wanted. I didn't want them to be alone, I wanted them, especially in this lifestyle that we're living, where we're constantly moving. I have to drag my first one from his friends every time, so he's gonna be close to his brother, hopefully. And so I was like, oh man, I'm so happy that they're, together, they're playing, they're super sweet kids. I'm trying to remember, so like that moment was super amazing for me, just to see them playing together and laughing together as she said in the video, because it's super cute. And also I've seen my first kid grow and develop in a lot of crazy ways. He's like, it's just like, it's great to see him. So right now he counts to 5 in 3 different languages, which is super cool. So
Mm.
he's only 2, but he's counting to 5 in English and Spanish, and also because we're going to Spain, so we're doing Spanish and Turkish. So he has 3 different languages that he counts to 5 in now, and that's super cool to see.
I was gonna say that one of the advantages, because you mentioned earlier you worry, you're a bit concerned about obviously the nature of your job and traveling, but I see it as a positive as well, because being exposed to different cultures, being exposed to different languages, it's a bonus, it's a plus for them.
Oh yeah.
I think it will make them very open-minded, make them very mentally aware of just so many things that their average child in America wouldn't be aware of. So I think it's a positive.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, like, I'm always like, I think my mind is always like, what could go wrong? But it's like, also there's like 20 different things that could go right. So like 100%, like I'm always trying to mitigate for the thing that could go wrong. I try to like make it perfect. But I mean, there's like you said, like learning languages, being exposed to different types of people, different types of cultures, different types of foods, like being open minded, being like willing, soaking things up, like he's learning from his entire environment. And so sometimes he'll just say things in other languages. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay. I was like, luckily, I know the words. So I'm like, okay, are you speaking multiple languages, kid? Like, this is fascinating to me. And so it's super exciting to see. I think just watching them grow and seeing them develop has been like, I mean, I'm trying to like be more specific, but I just in general, like it's really wonderful to see. And also like I had maternity leave recently, and with the Atlas I didn't really have a really great maternity leave because they didn't have it instituted in our US maternity leave policy is horrible. And so horrible. They need to do better in
Mhm.
the whole country. And being able to be with my kids on maternity leave, like when both of them, and being able to focus on them only and not worry about work, not worry. I could sleep when they slept. I could wake up when they woke up. Like I was able to spend more time with them. It was a big deal for me. It was like, it was great. And I think that actually helped my relationship with my first son. Cause I kind of felt like, while I was pregnant, I was super miserable and I was working and I was tired and I was, just, and at one point, I did have some of the health issues with carrying the baby, and so like I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this, but like my hips were super. My hips had this weird thing where I was in a lot of pain in my hips, and so
Mm.
I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this, but some people get this. Like sometimes those when you're pregnant, your hormones release and it loosens your joints. Some people
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
it's too much, and then it
Mm.
causes a lot of pain. And so like I
Mm.
got that. It's like where my joints loosen too much, and because and it caused me a lot of pain to the point where I had to like use a stick to walk at one point because I couldn't walk
Mm.
because it's just my bones were. It was bizarre. Anyway, and so like I couldn't hold Atlas. I couldn't do a lot of things like I normally would do, and so I spent months like that, and it was pretty bad. And so like and just being able to be on maternity leave and heal, I took that time to heal mentally, heal physically, and also like being able to like hold my kid again, things like that. It's just like those moments are 100% worth it. 100% like you see your child, you're able to go with them, you're able to like get down on the ground and play and do all those. There are little things, but there were things I couldn't do for like quite a few months, and so I was just very thankful to be able to do that and being able to be with them and see them for themselves and just watch them grow. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So spending that bonding, having that special time just to
That
bond
time
with
is
them.
important. Like I don't know what's wrong with
It's
this. But
important. No,
I'm
no,
like
the
domestic
maternity,
policy needs to get better. I'm not. I won't talk about foreign policy, but I'll say domestic policy in the United States needs to improve. We need to do
yeah, it needs to improve. Like in the UK, you can take up to a year off for
right.
maternity
People
and
could.
get paid for 9 months. You get paid
Can
for
you
9 months,
imagine?
and then the extra 3 months, if you want it, your job is going to be waiting for you.
That's
And same
amazing.
as most countries in Europe, but I'm shocked that the US is just 3 months. I'm totally
It's not.
shocked.
It's not. But and you know what? It's unpaid 3 months. That's the thing. It's
Really? I thought it
unpaid.
was paid.
It's unpaid, which is completely inequitable for people who don't like women who don't women from poor backgrounds who can't afford, like, you better have some savings if you want to take leave. That's why they were trying to pass a paid leave law and at least get 4 weeks, but they couldn't even do that. So we really need to do better, because thinking about, like, there were a lot of things going on, like formula shortages and stuff like that. Like, I mean, women have a large responsibility taking care of the house, trying to
Mhm.
feed their kids, and especially, like, if you want to breastfeed, like, those are things that take time. Like, those are things that take time, and it's double hard. Either way, it's double hard. But it's like, even especially trying to breastfeed like a child, like, I'm like thinking, like, I was so thankful to have maternity leave, because I need to sleep. You need to sleep.
Yeah.
That's why I said with Atlas, I wasn't sleeping very well, because I started work too early, and I was super tired, and I was miserable at work. Also, I was going to quit my job and leave. I was going to quit and leave, because I wasn't sleeping, and you need to sleep. It's just something that's a basic human thing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so, like, I totally, like, we it
I'm
just
I'm I'm shocked. Like I actually thought the 3 months was paid. So in essence, you're forced to choose either having a career or being a mom. And I can see that that would have an
a
effect on
lot
a
of people
lot of
a lot of people
people.
can afford it. Yeah, a lot of people cannot afford it. A lot of people can't do it. A lot of people can't
Okay.
afford to take the 12 weeks that they're given, because it's not paid.
What one advice, so this is the last question, but what one advice would you give a mom that is probably a stay-at-home mom that's trying to pick herself up and go back to work? Because one of the reasons why I did the Boss Mom series was just to kind of inspire moms. Like you said, there is such a discrimination when a woman takes time off to have babies, and the workplace is not as receptive, I would say, as to for men that don't have to take time off to have babies, or they probably look at a woman and think, oh, she's going to get pregnant soon, we have to pay her. So there's a gap in the system then, and I've noticed that a lot of moms are struggling, and they probably feel like, how will I go about having a career? So what advice would you give a mom in that category that's thinking of getting back to work but doesn't really know or feel confident that she can do it?
So some things that I believe in is kind of just starting where you're at. So I know, like, some people, it's weird to describe, but, like, for example, when I wanted to get into the news industry, I didn't have a news background, but I really wanted to try doing news, so I just started a blog. And so, and I wasn't paid for it, but I started it because I wanted to just prove that I was able to do what I wanted to do. And
Mm.
I actually used that blog as part of my resume when I was applying for jobs that were paid from with other people. And just like, being able to start yourself a little bit, where you building your skills, building a portfolio that you're able to show of the work that you want to
Mm.
do, is a good place. Depending on what work you want to do, if it's social media, building your social, if it's something, like, whatever it might be, thinking about ways that you can build a portfolio, even where you are, to show that you're able to do the work that you want to do. That would be the first thing I would say. In general, I think that having a community for childcare is really important, and that's a huge
Mhm.
thing. That's something that I needed help with, to keep going, was, like, just support with the kids, especially, like, we don't live next to my family. I live in right now. I'm in DC, and then I'm gonna be in Spain. So, like, right before we even go, like, my first thing to do right now, I've already been interviewing nannies. Like, like, before I even got there, I've been interviewing, like, people who can help out. Like, so because I just need, support and help, to do my work. And so, like, and it's really important to me to have good support and help. And so, like, luckily we both have, me and my husband have flexible jobs, in the sense that, like, right now, like, when I go to Spain, I'm a lot more in person, so that's harder. But my husband works from home, and so that's easier. So, well, at least one of us works from home. I will say that makes a big difference. So if you're able to work
Mhm.
from home or do a remote job, that makes a huge difference in being able to, like, have support and help. And also, for the people who are young, marry wisely. Very wisely. You need a supportive spouse. You can't do it by yourself. That's
Mm.
cool. And, like, I see some women, like, trying to do everything by themselves. I'm like, girl, something's got to go. Something's got to go, and you need some help.
Yeah.
You need help. You need
Yeah.
good help. Very wisely. If there is someone who
Yeah.
does not believe in you, or does not believe in your vision, or has other thoughts, don't marry them. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You know, like
Oh,
you're just like like you have to have someone who's willing to to see you, to support you, willing to say, okay, maybe if you do go into the workforce, are they willing to like let you do that? Like are they willing to like say, okay, we gotta split I gotta take a step back in my career, or I gotta like whatever it might be. Like sometimes
mm,
sometimes all that stuff requires that. Sometimes you can't take. Sometimes your husband or your spouse can't take that promotion because you guys got kids, and somebody's got to watch the kids, or something's got to, if both of y'all are working all the time, who's gonna be there? Like I said, like my husband had to take, hey, okay, let's hire the help that we need so that you can get back
mm,
and do the job that you want to do. Going back to school also helps, even if you take a few classes. You don't have to take
mm.
a whole like. I wouldn't honestly, if you already have a degree or something, I wouldn't recommend going back and getting a whole degree. But sometimes you need a network, and so you need to go
Yeah.
to the network. And I think honestly, I think like half the job, like I would say about 70% of jobs are network. Like you have
Wow.
kids, you have
Now, this is something they don't tell you in school. This
no.
is something they don't tell you in school. A lot of people spend a lot of money doing degrees, and you don't do it. You can't get a job after finishing the degree.
That's why
But
that's
the
like,
network, your network is key.
and you need to go in person. You got to get out. You got to get out the house. If you're going to school, and people are like, oh, I'm going to online school. Like that's good, and it's good to have the knowledge. But really, you're paying for a network. You are paying for a
Mm,
network. You have to understand that. Like you have to understand that you're like a lot of the people that I find jobs from are my friends, or that I've gotten. You have to be there. You have to be there. You have to see the people. You have to talk to the people. They have to see you. They have to recommend you. Like all those things. Like those that makes a big difference. Some people will say like, "Oh, I have like tons of degrees and all these things," but they won't care. They want to know who recommended you,
hmm.
whose
That's a
name's
good
coming with your
point.
name, and that makes a big difference. Like that makes a big difference. People sometimes you can apply blindly, and sometimes it works. And like a lot of times it does work. And I will say that, but I will say a lot of times reference matters. A lot of times, especially for the good jobs. I would say even like the jobs that are hard to get into, like reference is a big deal. If you get in, like I did an unpaid internship just so I could know people. Like, and sometimes you have to take that step back to get in the door. And so, like,
Hmm.
if you say I'm, older, but I want to take an unpaid internship, because you might need to get your foot in the door. You need to see people. You need, especially in like big cities or places like in places where someone is receiving many applications for a job. You need a name. You need a face. You need to stand out some way. And a lot of that in certain places is like just known folks. So networking is important. Going to events. I go to lots of events. Sometimes I'm like, should I go to this thing? I really need to get out. I really need to. Sometimes I'm like, sometimes I need to show my face. I need to be there. I need to see who's there. I need to say hi. I need to smile. I need some friends because you're gonna need. You don't know who's gonna be in the room, and so like you need to. If you want to be in certain spaces, you got to make yourself known. And that's so
Okay.
like
Thank.
I always go to conferences. I used to go to lots of conferences. It's expensive, but I used to get like there's sometimes they have scholarships for them, and so I would get scholarships for conferences. Like then they will pay for your ticket and stuff, or if you volunteer to do stuff, they'll pay for your ticket. Like or they'll let you in for free. So like if it's around you. But yeah, whatever industry you're in, I highly recommend networking. Highly recommend it because that's one of the easiest ways to get your foot back in the door.
Thank you so much for that. That is actually a lot of useful tips and advice for moms that want to get back to work. So we end our podcast with 3 questions,
Okay.
and I'm gonna start the sentence, and I want you to finish it with what you feel was true for you.
Okay.
So being a mom has done what for you? Being a mom has.
Uh, Being a mom has taught me how to let go.
I feel happiest when I feel happiest when I.
Nowadays, I feel happiest when I'm with my family. Yeah, my kids, my husband. I feel happiest when I'm home.
If you could tell 5-year-old Jenny something, what would you tell her?
5-year-old Jenny used to think that career was everything, and I wanted to be like super businesswoman and not mom, and didn't respect the mom role. Respect the mom role. Respect little Jenny. Respect the mom role. It's like, you know, it's not. It's not. It's actually, you know, like fancy things and are like, it looks fancy. Like, oh, I'm going to this big meeting, or I'm gonna be with these, you know, whatever title of, you know, whatever school, but or whatever place. But you know, being home, being with family, those moments, like that's those are the moments that I treasure. Like I can be next to whatever big name or whatever, but my happiness comes from those moments. And it's like the
Wow.
so it's yeah. And I will say, like, I do have a few, like I will say, like, you know, I've had a few moments where I've been with in the room with a lot of people, and it's fun, and it's fun and interesting, but happiness happiness is those little moments with my kids and with my husband and my family. Just us being together as a family is happiness.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for joining us today, Jenny.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate I appreciate your authentic storytelling. You took us through the journey from the start and how you got to where you are. So thank you so much for
Thank you
sharing
for this
openly.
lovely platform for moms, and I'm wishing you the best. I know you're doing a lot in Dubai and doing all, and you know, boss momming it up yourself. So thank you for creating a platform where people can be open, authentic, and real.